Hello, friends and beautiful people. Happy New Year. Happy 2020. Can you believe it? We made it. We made it into 2020. And it is, or 2021 rather. We made it through 2020. And here we are, excited for what's new and excited for what is next and excited for a next level of expansion. And excited to see where our new levels of potential will take us next, because we've shed a lot in this last year, haven't we? And I know that it is something many of us do. We like to set goals for ourselves. We have vows that we make. We have resolutions, if you want to call them that, this day tends to kick off a lot of that for us. But I wanted to talk about this through the filter of understanding it in a 5D perspective, or from a 5D vantage point, and why it's so important, perhaps now more than ever, to follow through on this vow, this resolution, this commitment that not only you make to yourself, but any commitments that you make. If you have given your word for something, or you have maybe set it up in the mental matter of your own mind, inside your own head, that you have it in your heart, in your mind, to do something, to commit to something, why it is so vital that you make good on that promise. And what happens to you on a physical, mental, emotional level, and on a spiritual level when you don't hold true to those commitments. So developing a 5D mindset is really, what I invite you to do as we go forth into 2021. And I know there's some people who wanted me to tag them. Hi, Danielle. So I don't know if I'll be able to do it right now, just because I'm not able to look at all the names. But I will tag you in the replay, that's for sure, because I wanted to make this kind of quick, because I'm trying to spend a little time with my husband today before he has to go to work. Feeling such amazing energy today. Me too. I feel really amped up. I feel really excited about a lot of potentials, a lot of possibilities. And even though I haven't been sleeping very much, thank you, full moon, and just all the energies. There's a lot of culmination energy with the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021, just ushering a lot of energy out and a lot of new energy in, because there is no such thing as an energetic void. If something moves out, if something releases, something else comes in. And that's why we need to be intentional with our energy, and why making commitments are so important. But I just feel really amped up. I feel like, even on no sleep, I'm just kind of buzzing and excited. And there's so much to do, so much to talk about, so much to accomplish. And not in a way that I feel rushed. I just feel excited and kind of weirdly elated at the same time. So maybe some of you are mirroring that and feeling that as well. But I wanted to talk about this in the sense of 4D, because it's really important to understand 4D. When you pull something out of, let's just call it the cosmic stream that filters in as mental matter, and we kind of take that as inspiration, creative ideas. Think about it this way. Songwriters, singers and songwriters who take their inspiration from, they could say whatever is their muse, but where they're pulling the information for their creativity, their inspired ideas from, is the mental matter of 4D. And 4D is it's like an energetic soup. It's a blended reality where 3D, 4D, 5D all kind of overlap with each other and inform each other. But 4D really is that mental matter that we work with when we have creative inspiration, when we're thinking about a different way of being, and we lend our thought forms to crafting an idea of, well, what would this new way of being look like? How would I look? What would my life look like? What would my friends, my family members, my job, my financial state, what would all that look like? We're pulling those inspirations, those ideas, that creative energy from the mental matter of 4D. And when you think about 4D as this, it's kind of like an energetic soup. It's kind of like a limbo. It is a great realm of fantasy at the same time. And what's interesting about 4D is that layer of dimensional reality that before it reaches us, and us as creator beings who take or manipulate that form that shows up in 4D as ideas or inspiration, it's humans, it's us that are responsible for taking that information, that wisdom, and translating it, that frequency, into form. That's what we do, because 3D is our playground. It doesn't feel that way all the time, but it really is. Everything that you're creating, everything that's laid out in front of you, is the result of you taking some frequency, some spectrum of vibration, and manipulating it into form. Okay? You are a creator being. So let's get that out of the way right now. And 3D is your playground for doing that. But it comes in through this filter or buffer of 4D first. Okay? So think of 4D and the realms beyond 4D, any dimensional layers that are above or out from, they're really non-local and they're non-dual past 6D. 5D, we're still playing with some duality. But those higher dimensions are feeding through the filter of 4D to reach us in 3D. And messages from higher dimensions reach us in the collective through 4D. This information splits between negative and positive potentials or possibilities. And depending on the feelings or the temperaments or the beliefs or the attitudes, opinions that we already have that are already existing in 3D, we'll manipulate that information that's coming through from higher dimensions in through 4D into something positive or negative, just depending on where the tipping point of mass consciousness is. Okay, are you guys following me so far? Don't worry, I'm going to get to the point here. But I have to lay this background first. And I will tell you right now that our next episode, episode 5 of All Things Ascension, is going to be titled Understanding 4D. Because I think a lot of people really don't understand what happens in 4D and how important that is as a buffer zone. Yes, it's a fantasy realm. Yes, it's a realm of mental matter and possibility, and where we can already start seeing where timelines can bifurcate or split off into positive and negative timelines or positive or negative possibilities just by the information, the energetic soup of 4D. And we're not the only ones who are using 4D as a buffer zone for information. There are other beings of lesser integrity, not the lightest beings in the cosmos, using 4D as a filter for informing mass consciousness of 4D. So that behooves us to be even more responsible, better stewards of our thoughts, our feelings, our attitudes, and opinions, because we're not the only ones working with and manipulating the matter or the possibilities for matter to form out of 4D, okay? So if we're not in power of what we do with those commitments, what we do with those ideas, what we do with that level of inspiration, and how we take inspired action on that to kind of move it into the 5D realm, because if we're making decisions that, this is better for me, but it's also better for the collective. Here's how we need to be thinking. And I invite you to start thinking about your commitments to yourself and other people in this way, that as we ascend into higher elevated realms of consciousness and move towards this 5D paradigm and embodying that, we're making not only decisions that are highest and best for us, but with the unity consciousness principle of what is not only highest and best for me, but highest, best, and good for all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved. And if we're making our desires and intentions, and then the commitments that we make to ourselves to carry that out with that principle of unity consciousness in mind, number one, our manifestations tend to show up a lot more quickly because there's no resistance or very little. And number two, that's the mindset, meaning that's the fertilizer where your thought forms are, how well your thought forms are aligned with what you're committing to or willing to do. This is what brings us into a 5D way of being. We have to develop the 5D mindset first. And this is how we do it. We figure out, okay, what is my intention or desire for being? And how does this really help out the collective? Because think about it. On a very basic way of talking about this, if you're really taking care of yourself, if you're cleaning up your shadow, if you are moving into a better place where you feel better about yourself, you have more self-confidence, more self-esteem, you feel good about yourself, you feel excited and a curious sense of expectancy and a great feeling of anticipation about what's next, aren't you then in a better place to show up and be a huge vessel to hold space for others, to hold that space of transformation for other people if you're already doing it for yourself. You know, we can't serve from an empty cup. We can't serve others from an empty plate. So really everything about moving into unity consciousness is, okay, well, not only do we need to look at and fine tweak what we intend for ourselves, but if you're better off in this place and this intention, how much better are you off to serve the collective? What better place are you then in now to serve from a greater cup, literally a cup that runneth over, with so many potentials and possibilities for ways of being that maybe were veiled to you before because you were in a lack or scarcity paradigm and you couldn't even see these gifts that were right in front of your eyes because you were in a different vibration, okay? So 4D is this place where we're pulling the inspiration, the creative ideas from that. It is filtering in through mental matter, okay? But it doesn't just sit there. You know, nothing exists as a vacuum. Nothing exists unto itself without being informed by something else. And nothing is really static, especially as we're moving through a very highly accelerated ascension timeline. So when you just let your thoughts sit there about, okay, well, this could look like this for me, and I can have this better life for myself, or I can have this more money, or I can have this better job, this better relationship, living in a different place. Do you just sit and fantasize about that stuff and let yourself be the plaything of other energies that are also using 4D as a buffer zone, okay? And not all of those energies using 4D as a buffer zone have the highest intentions for humanity. The 4D realm is a very vast kind of energetic soup where there can be a lot of different hands in that pie, if you want to say that. And so if you just sit with your intention, you don't do anything with it. You just sit with your creative impulses. You don't do anything with it. You don't take inspired action. Or you just sit with these commitments and loftily say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make this list of all these things. But you don't intend to take any inspired action on them. What you're doing is kind of making yourself an unwitting plaything of 4D, where you're just playing with fantasy realms, but you're not doing anything about it. And you're also existing or kind of convincing yourself as an illusion that you're existing in this place of limbo because you're not taking any inspired action. And you don't have to take huge steps or leaps forward. You don't have to take way big steps out of your comfort zone. No, you don't have to. The other thing to remember is that we're not rushed. We're all exactly where we need to be. So we can let go of the rush, because what is the rush about? Like we're going to miss out on something, right? Or someone else is going to get to it or get what's ours before we can get it. What's yours is already yours. No one can take that from you. And what's yours is yours through what you claim by the vibration that you're holding. And when you claim something through the vibration you're holding, that means that your thought forms, your beliefs about who you are and what you can accomplish are matching up with the amount of action, inspired action, that you're taking every day. And not action like drudgery where you're shooting yourself to death. I call it shooting yourself in the foot. Or saying I'm supposed to be doing this, or this person has done that, it's supposed to look like that. We got to let go of all that shit, you guys. That is a survival mechanism. That is your ego personality running the show. That is not the highest level of inspiration that is leading you forward into your highest potential timeline. Let go of what it has to look like, because none of that stuff is going to shape up to look like things that have looked the way they did in the past. We are moving into a completely different paradigm. So let go of progress should look like this for me, or success should look like this for me at this point. I've been doing this work for so long, I should be here. Knock that shit off. No one else is putting that pressure on you. No one. No one. And if there is someone, you got to get them out of your life. You got to tell them to go bye-bye. We don't need that. Our whole lives up until now have been that. We are invited by so many higher dimensional forces, beings, entities who are here to help us along this path. We are being invited to look at everything in a fresh light. And we're being invited to really make the commitments that we make to ourselves now and follow through on them. Because when you don't, you also split yourself in that 4D dimensional playground between, well, I want to do this and my heart says this, The entirety of my being and how I feel says, I really want this. And in a way, I know I could have it. But maybe those old thought forms are invading and saying, yeah, but remember when you tried that before and it didn't work out? Or how many courses or, self-help programs and self-help books did you read and sign up for that you never really did anything with? Let go of all of those memories of that too, because none of it is real. None of it is real. And none of it applies anymore. The only thing that applies is what you do right now, because there is only now. There is no past. There is no future. Or you could think of those things as different expressions of your now. If you are in a good place in your life, doing now what you love, what you commit to, because you know that leads to a higher way of being for you and the collective, you're going to feel better about your past. If you're doing now a commitment or following through on a vow or resolution that you make for yourself that you know is going to help serve you better in your life, but serve those around you who you care about, your community, your clients, your family members, etc., you're going to feel better about your future. There's no other way to tackle how you feel about your past or your future than to deal with you right now and right where you're at. Not where you're supposed to be at, not where you should be at, not where anyone else who's trying to give you some external validation about who you are or confirmation about who you are from outside of you. You can't be listening to that anymore. Because all of those voices, all that energy is linked to an old paradigm of being that's falling away. And so when you honor those commitments right now, the things that you want to do, the things that you want to follow through with, the things that you're willing to take steps with every single day, it doesn't matter how big those steps are. Let go of how big it needs to be. If you want to make quantum leaps, go ahead and do it. If you want to take baby steps, do that too. Don't try to have it be compared to what anyone else is doing on their journey, okay? We all got to stay in our own lane here. Do what fits for you, okay? Do what fits for you, but follow through on that commitment, because here's what happens when you don't. It again takes you into that 4D playground where you're splitting between positive and negative possibilities, and it creates a divergence within you. It creates a bifurcation of energies, an energy split between those good intentions that you have, those vows, resolutions that you want to make for yourself to better your existence, your way of being, and benefit those, because that's the collateral benefit of taking care of yourself and making sure that you're okay and have everything that you need and living beyond survival mode means. When you're following through on that, when you're making those commitments, in other words, you don't have that divergence or that split of energy. When you're not making good on those commitments, you're not taking some sort of daily action towards it. You create a divergence, literally a bifurcation, an energy split within you. And then you have these feelings again of, shit, I didn't commit to that. I said I was going to do this and show up for this person. I didn't do it. I'm such a heel. I'm such a jerk. And where does that take you? That takes your frequency way, way down, doesn't it? Takes you way down in frequency. So it takes you back into these 3D lower hubs, lower consciousness hubs of the 3D matrix. Okay? But that 4D fantasy part of you is still, that mental matter part of you is still tethering yourself then to a realm where you already have a split in energy. That means your vessel of you as an individuated expression of consciousness has a split of energy, a rift. And you're exploring that negativity and darkness of, I'm someone who doesn't follow through on my commitments, or any other statements to that effect, where you are downtrodden, you are playing yourself down, you are disenfranchising your own self by calling yourself out on, I'm such a jerk, and I should have done this, I told this person I was going to do that, and I was going to show up for this, and I didn't do all of these things. And that's exactly the energy that makes you a plaything for any other energies, entities, darkness, negative polarities who are playing in 4D also. It kind of turns you into a host, and I don't mean to say it like to scare you, but this is how powerful these energies are now. And I want to give you this as something to think about in terms of like, don't be scared for not making your commitments, because that's only going to make you more of a plaything. Anytime you're in fear, that makes you more of a plaything for darker energies. But as we fizzle out these last gasp timelines where we've been working with the darker and negative polarities, you better believe that if there is an entity or being or some mechanism of power at play that's been out of integrity, if it even gets a whisper, some idea that it's going to be washed out completely because everyone's raising in consciousness and that means they don't have power anymore, you better believe that that darker energy is going to try to hold on for dear life and look for anyone and everyone that is willing to play their game with them. But you're not really willing to play that game anymore, are you? You've seen what it's like and known what it's like and felt what it's like to be disempowered, to be disenfranchised from self, to beat yourself up, right? And when has that ever given you the drive to really want to go forward? That's not the energy that kicks you into gear to take inspired action when you're kicking yourself, right? And you're kicking your own behind about something you didn't do or follow through with. That's not inspirational. What does it make you do? It turns you into a couch potato, right? It makes you devolve even further. Like, I didn't take these steps today, so why even bother? Because now I have so much further to go, I might as well just fuck the whole thing, right? And hey, I've done it too. I'm not trying to call anybody out or, say to anybody something that I'm not saying to myself. This is for me too. But we are more than ever having a relationship with 4D, and we can use it in one of two ways. We can use it to explore the positive potentials and realities that get filtered in from higher dimensional levels of awareness in 4D, or we can play with the negative polarities that are filtering in there. But what we're really being invited to do is create the new ideas from this blended reality of 4D. The mental matter, the thought forms. We can solidify new levels of ideas, inspiration in 5D through then our behaviors, our actions, our follow through. What taking action does and how this allows you to take the 5D mindset is when you're giving yourself those principles of unity consciousness again. If I'm taking care of myself, I'm in a better place to take care of other folks. And when you're taking care of yourself and you're in a good place, you're working with an energy grid. You're working with an infinite energy grid, an inexhaustible energy matrix that supplies you with untold resources, especially if you're someone who would be exhausted before. If you're taking care of yourself and you're seeing little levels of progress in your life every day, doesn't it feel like you have tons of energy to accomplish anything you want to in the world? But you have to develop the 5D mindset first, knowing that if I can do this for myself, then think of how many ways I can show up for the rest of the planet. Think of how many ways I can serve the collective if I'm serving myself first. Okay, that's not selfish, right? That means that you're taking care of everybody else. If you take care of yourself first and you're living beyond just survival means, okay? When you do that, it stops you from creating that bifurcation or that split within your own vessel, your own being. And that also splits timelines. So you're exploring several different timelines at once. That means that you could be funding your highest and best potential timeline, but if you're not taking commitments or taking yourself to task to follow through on those commitments, whether to yourself or others, you're creating a timeline split within you. So then you're taking an energetic funding, an investment of potential energy, okay, that could be all funded toward this highest potential timeline. Just because you're not taking a couple steps to follow through, now you've split your energy. And now you're playing with more the mental matter and fantasy of 4D, where you're exploring an idea and thought only who you could be, instead of bringing it down and taking action on it. That's like blending 3D with 5D, really. And then you're in this inexhaustible energy grid, this inexhaustible supply of energy where you have all the resources, all the support that you need, all the inspiration, all the good beliefs about yourself, because you're making strides every day. So you tend to show up and believe in yourself more a little bit every day. If you're just meeting those small tasks, moving forward. It's all about the momentum, folks. It's not about how big the leap is. It's about the momentum. And the second you lose that momentum, that's where we get in trouble, right? Awesome stuff. I'm glad that this is resonating because I'm so excited about it. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. But where you have that divergence, it's like taking a powerful energy stream of investment and splitting it off. So then it's only half as good, isn't it? Or maybe a quarter as good. Why not make it all good? Just follow through on those commitments. Stop splitting your energy off to another timeline that is just giving you more contrast. And think about it, folks. We've been playing with 3D reality for thousands of years. Many of us have incarnated many times. Many of us have explored 3D realities, lack paradigms, scarcity consciousness, ideas and structures for a really long time. We're done with exploring the contrast. What else does it really have to show us? What else? And you can ask yourself, use this prompt. Like, me not following through on my commitments is just me exploring more contrast. What am I going to get out of this? Haven't I downloaded this lesson and completed this lesson many times over for myself? So at that point, aren't you just kind of habituated then to a certain way of being? Well, you got to habituate then to a different way of being. And the easiest way to do that is ask yourself, okay, how can I make these commitments bite-sized so that I can show up every day and get momentum going with this? Really getting this ball rolling. Again, let go of the idea that, you know, a quantum leap has to be a massive step way out of your comfort zone right off the bat. It doesn't. You can, you know, dip a toe in the water and then 3 more toes in the water and then the whole foot in the water and then the whole leg. I mean, you can get yourself acclimated to your new normal and just coax yourself into believing that this is who I am now. And if we try to do too much at once, that's self-sabotage central, yeah? And I've been there. I know what that's all about, right? When you tend to go really, I'm a Capricorn, so what can I say? I try to go really, really big sometimes. But I've known and I've seen, because I've played with that contrast so many times before, what that does if I try to bite off way more than I can chew. It's better to me to have a lot of little goals and a lot of little steps every day. That just works for me. Small steps go a long way. No more big, go big or go home. Right? That's an old paradigm. That's an excellent point, Larianne. You know, feel the fear and do it anyway? No, fuck that shit. That's pardon my French. That's the old paradigm. That's the old paradigm. And that only comes from and stems from an idea that there is lack, that there is competition, that what you have or you claim was never yours unless you worked your ass off to get it, or you competed with someone to get it because you were the better one. None of that stuff was ever true. None of it. And so we are learning ourselves out of it. But taking inspired action on a new potential for being. When you're not doing that, making, you know, clear steps to follow through, you are lowering your vibration, which again makes you the plaything of more deliberate, sometimes darker energies of 4D. Literally doing nothing, where you're just maybe playing in the fantasy realms and you have these thoughts and fantasies about who you are and you're doing nothing, again, makes you the plaything because you're already putting your energy and a certain potential or tether of yourself in that mental matter of 4D, and you not taking action on it is just leaving you kind of like an open vessel. Does that make sense? The way I see it sometimes is like, if you've ever been on a construction site and you see like one of the tractors or bulldozers that the engine's going, but there's no one in there. Imagine if someone stepped in there that didn't know how to operate that thing and just was running chaos all over the construction site. That's kind of how I see 4D when we're not in charge or aware of our energy in 4D. Meaning we're not aware of our thought forms. We just allow our thoughts to go wherever, whenever, all day, every day. We are being invited into emotional maturity. That means being in control of your thoughts, beliefs, attitudes, opinions, especially about yourself, especially about what is possible now, which is really anything. And the key here about all of this is your feelings. Because even though we talk about 4D as place of mental matter. And I'm going to talk about 4D in a lot more detail on, I think I'm going to do it on Thursday of this week. So the 7th, episode 5 of All Things Ascension will be understanding 4D, because I really want you guys to understand 4D, because it's a big player in what happens next for us here. But your feelings are everything in 4D as well. Because if you think about your thoughts as what anchors you in the mental matter of 4D, but where we are allowed to take those thoughts, those fantasies, and convert them into form in 3D, they are magnetic in nature, and that's always your feelings. So when you're playing with these ideas about maybe your resolutions or your vows that you're making for yourself now and for the rest of the year, what does it feel like? Let go of what it looks like, because again, everything's going to look different. Everything's going to look different now, okay? It's about the feeling. If I had X amount of dollars in my bank account and I had, a stellar year business-wise, what would that feel like for me? That's the magnetic part of you being an electromagnetic being. Your thoughts are electric, your feelings are magnetic. And that's how we create in 3D from the mental matter, the energetic soup of 4D. We put our thoughts in there, it anchors us. We derive creative inspiration and thoughts from that dimensional realm. And it's the magnetic nature of our feelings as human beings that makes the magic happen. That's the alchemy. So focus more on the feelings when you're writing your commitments down, your resolutions, your vows, whatever you want to call them. What is the feeling? And the key to you baby stepping this follow through on your commitments is doing something every day that brings that feeling to you of what the end game looks like. Because each step towards that, where you're deriving momentum from taking inspired action on those commitments, every day should make you feel a little bit like that. And if it doesn't, you got to tweak what you're doing, because maybe it's off. And right now we are so tuned in, guys. If something feels off, it's because it is. So maybe that resolution or vow or commitment was you 3 years ago, but maybe it's not you now. And maybe it's something similar to that, but it's not that. So if it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel off, if it feels off, it doesn't give you that feeling, there's a reason why. Okay, does that make sense? Your feelings are everything, and it allows you to stay true to your commitments because you're noticing that you're feeling every day a little bit closer to this end game. It should be like this little teaser or this little taste every time you take action on these commitments, or you keep following through on these commitments to yourself. And, the reason why, I'm going to close this out by saying this one thing. We know that 4D has been such a powerful force on this planet, especially now that we're looking back in hindsight on this 2020 timeline and seeing so much darkness, so much negativity play out in the 2020 timeline. It's because we are purging a lot of pent-up energy from 4D. It's like we took all of these things that we were playing with in the mental matter of 4D that were not necessarily the highest and best things to materialize for humanity. It got pent up there for so long. This is another thing that happens in 4D. That's an exhaustible grid of energy, 4D, by the way. So when things get pent up, it needs a release. And that's one of the reasons why we saw so much negativity and darkness play out in 3D, in the 3D reality plane over 2020, is because there was so much pent up energy in there for so long. It was like a pressure cooker, and it needed to be released. But the good news is we released a lot of that. And now we get to play with the 4D plane or dimensional reality and have a lot more wiggle room, because a lot of that negativity played out, a lot of that negativity purged. I'm not saying it's all gone, but we get to replace some of that energetic void that was created from the release with our good intentions and our commitments to those good intentions going forward. That's how powerful we are. So if you want to know more about understanding 4D, we're going to go down the rabbit hole a little bit more and talk about feelings and thought forms in 4D and the energy split between positive and negative energies that happens in 4D. We're going to talk about that this Thursday, which is, I think it's the 7th of January. Yes. Thursday, the 7th of January. We're going to talk about that 11 a.m. Pacific time. That will be episode 5 of All Things Ascension, Understanding 4D. Today, also, one last thing. It's the last day to get in on Timelines Expanded Masterclass with the early bird pricing. You can always join this course, but this is the last day to get in on early bird pricing for, I don't know, maybe all of 2021. I'm not sure. If I teach it again live, it will probably not be until September. So if you want to be in for the live 12-week program, now's the time to join. We start on January 25th. And it will go for 12 weeks. This is a very intensive, spiritually advanced program. But what's awesome about this program is that once you join, you're a lifer. You're in for life. So every time I teach it live and you have lifetime access to the material and all the replays, you can revisit all of the teachings as many times as you want. You can come back to the live program as many times as you want. So it's worth the price for that anyway, because I always add more every time I teach it. I always nuance or finesse some of the teachings so that it makes more sense for you guys. I add more practices, etc. So I hope to see you in class. Thank you so much, you guys. Happy New Year. Happy, 2021. I'm so glad that you're part of this community with me, and I'm proud, so proud and humbled by this community. I'm excited for our summit coming up very, very soon. If you're wanting to sign up and be a presenter for that, those spots are filling up pretty quickly. So if you're going to sign up to speak, I would do it now, because I think we've only got a handful of spots left. February 5th through 7th, 2021 is our next summit. So have fun, guys. Write those commitments down and figure out how to baby step it and follow through. It means everything now for yourself and for the collective. Love and peace, guys. Bye-bye.